Welcome back, everybody, to the Miami Marlins franchise. Today, we'll be starting season number 4 of the series. In the last episode, we went through the offseason, and in case you missed that episode, make sure to check out the series playlist because we made quite a few moves, hence why we are now the second-ranked team in the entire game. We lost some guys like Tyler Mahle, Yandy Diaz, and Liam Hendricks, but we were able to replace all of those guys with players who I think are going to be even better for us. We also traded away Sixto Sanchez to the Tampa Bay Rays, sort of ending the experiment with him. But we got better in a lot of other areas, particularly the bullpen, which was rather inconsistent last year. So the first player we got was Devin Williams. He struggled over the last few years, so it was basically a buy low deal for him. And then we got Dylan Tate, who's been Mr. Consistent with the Orioles. We acquired Ivan Herrera and Austin Wells to battle for the backup catcher spot. And of course, the biggest move of all was signing shortstop Bo Bichette. Going into the offseason, I did not plan on taking a big swing, but with Bo Bichette coming off the year he did, a 4.6 WAR in just over 100 games, and the market for him being non-existent, what we decided to do was give him a short deal. It's basically a one-year contract for $24 million with a player option this upcoming offseason to where he will either reset the market or come back for another year. It does sort of make the infield crowded. We already have Gavin Lux, Jacob Berry, Luis Ariz, and Woody Landry. I get the simple solution to be to DH one of them, but the outfield is crowded too. We still have De La Cruz, we still have Sanchez, we still have Anthony Santander, and obviously Jazz Chisholm and Luis Robert are stars. And don't forget about Gennaro Miller, who's our two-way player. So that's 11 guys, not counting the catcher position, who need playing time. Before we go any further here, we're going to cover the international subscriber-made free agents who were signed by all of you guys, and then we're going to go through spring training as well. If you would like to skip right to the regular season, I'll put a timestamp. The link is in the description, and you'll be able to skip over. But here's a look at all of these subscriber-made international free agents and where they ended up. Usually I make 30 players per season. I think I miscounted this year. I think it was actually like 32 or 33. So we went a little bit extra, I guess, this season, especially with the position players. I'm pretty sure there were only 7 pitchers within this class. And the position players have some really intriguing talents, but I'm excited to show you guys who are going to be immediately some of the better prospects in baseball right away. Montego Fernandez might be the best player here. He signed with the Washington Nationals, so one of our rivals gets a big-time bat at first base. Akira Shakira and Josiah Barrero were 2 of the best second basemen available. They signed with the Mariners and Giants, respectively. 2 very high potential players who also have very high ratings right off the bat. Let's move to the other side of the infield. The Phillies made a nice pickup with Dara O'Monahan. Miguel Baeza was one of the best power bats in the class. He ends up signing with the New York Yankees. So the Yankees get their next potential star in the infield. Shin Park-jun was a very talented shortstop. He signs with the Rangers. Lonzo Bailey from Jamaica was one of the best players here. He goes to the Angels. Diego Leclerc, also really good. He ends up with the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team who desperately needs a superstar there, especially after they traded O'Neal Cruz away back in Season 1. Day-Day Swanson in the outfield looks really good. He ended up signing with the Chicago White Sox. And then looking now through the final players of the group, Paulo Jimenez, talented player. He also ends up in Pittsburgh. D'Angelo Calderon to Minnesota. And that'll wrap things up for the players who did not sign with us. We did sign one player, that is second baseman Jeremias Moyano from Puerto Rico. The ceiling with him isn't super high since he's already 24 years old. It only has C potential, but he's already a 70 overall and will immediately be put onto the 40-man roster. Really good power, really good plate discipline. Those are the 2 things that really pop off right away. Pretty solid defensive player as well, and he will add to the talented depth that we have within the middle infield. This is what the lineups will look like for spring training. At the start, we're really going to prioritize getting a lot of these young guys some action. I'm especially curious about Khalil Watson and Kevin Alcantara because I think both of them are good enough to play at the big league level at some point this year. And as spring training goes along, we're going to get more of our regular big leaguers some action. Same thing can be said with the pitching. I think we've got our top 3 spots in the rotation set with Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, and Jesus Luzardo. And then the final 2 spots will basically be a 3-way battle between Gennaro Miller, Max Meyer, and Yuri Perez. And most likely the 2 guys who do the best in spring training will take up those spots. I also wanted to see how Robbie Jones would do. I think he's pretty close to being a big leaguer. And then Connor Prelup will get the last spot. And then here's a look at the bullpen. So going through our spring training simulation, we did have one sort of major injury, at least in terms of a long-term thing, and that's with Connor Prellup, who dislocated his shoulder. He'll be out for around the first half of the year. The team ended up performing really well. We went 16-9, and as you can see here, a lot of the guys at the top of the offensive lists are our regular starters. We did have some guys really struggle, like Luis Arraez, who hit sub 200, but for the most part, the guys who were expected to do well did do well, and a lot of the younger players kind of struggled a little bit. I thought Khalil Watson was pretty good. Kevin Alcantara was fine as well. Ryan Poles, I think, was the most impressive player of the group. He's probably not going to make the big league roster, but I'm really happy to see him do well. As for the pitching, Miller was definitely the best of the three, so he'll be the fourth starter. And then between Meyer and Perez, they were both equally not great. Perez allowed a walk per inning. That's dreadful. I know Meyer's ERA is higher, but he only really had one bad outing, whereas Yuri Perez, the whip is higher. The FIP slightly favors Perez, but not really by much. Both of them were not very good, so we're going to have a tough decision with that fifth spot, and we're going to hope that one of those guys really breaks out this year, or else that could end up being a problem. The bullpen, for the most part, did quite well, too, and now it's time to cut our roster. We only have 39 guys on the 40-man right now, thanks to the Connor Prellup injury. So what I decided to do with Perez and Myers, we're going to keep both of them on the big league roster. They're both going to get opportunities to start games. For now, we will go with Yuri Perez as the final starter. Meyer will be the long reliever in the bullpen, but those guys will likely switch off. In terms of send-downs, Braxton Garrett and Yusei Kikuchi, along with Jorge Alcala, were among the highlights with the pitchers. Austin Wells won the backup catching job over Ivan Herrera, but we'll be monitoring how he does in AAA. Khalil Watson will not start the year on the big league roster, but I think he's going to get called up at some point. It's just kind of crowded up there in the infield, but I feel like he's close to being too good to keep off of the roster. Orelvis Martinez, despite struggling, will be our main backup infielder over guys like Watson, Charles LeBlanc, and Rob Refsnyder. Esteury Ruiz was another surprise send-down. I just didn't really have a spot for him on the roster, although he is a talented player, and he will likely enter the big leagues soon, too. We do have one more order of business before we get to the regular season, and that's with Edward Cabrera. He has been outstanding over the last 2 years. He led the National League in pitching WAR a season ago at 4.6. I think it's time to give him an extension. We're going to give him a 5-year deal for $74 million. The extension will kick in next year, and he will not be a free agent through the first 3 years that he would be. So this locks him up to 9 years of MLB service. He says no, he wants more money. I would up it to $78 million. He would still say no, so I would bite the bullet, bring it to 80, and he accepts. The deal is backloaded, so he will make more money later. I think we're going to need that flexibility early on, and there is a team option for the final season in case he kind of declines into his early 30s. We can get out of it and not have to pay the final quarter of that deal. So with that, we are now into the regular season, and let's take a look at our lineups to start the year. There are some noticeable position players who are not going to be everyday guys. For right now, guys like Brian De La Cruz will not play against righties. Gavin Lux is not in the lineup against lefties. We're going to have a lot of guys really battle things out. I think the top 6 guys are pretty safe in the lineup. But other than that, we're going to be holding open competitions for that final outfield spot, for that final spot in the infield as well. So guys are going to have to play well to continue to get playing time. As for the rotation, as I said, Yuri Perez and Gennaro Miller will be the final 2 starters over Max Meyer, but Meyer will get plenty of opportunities to pitch, and he'll likely get some spot starts here and there, especially if we have an injury. For now, Devin Williams will be the closer, but if Camilo Duvall plays better, we may change that. So let's hop into our opening day game here against the New York Mets. Us and the Mets were amongst the teams in the competition for wild card spots during last year's playoff run. Obviously, we got one of the wild card spots, and the Mets did not. The Mets roster is a very fascinating one. I'm not sure if this team is built to really compete all that much. I think the Mets are really going to regret passing on Kurt Kellenberger, the generational prospect in last year's draft who they had a chance to select, who ultimately ended up with the Reds. Here's a look at the Marlins' projections for this season. A lot of Jazz Chisholm on the list. He probably won't be as good as he was last year, considering he hit 48 home runs and had a WAR of about 10. But they're still expecting a big season out of him, as are we. Let's take a look at both lineups. Regular starters, sort of, for the Marlins. They are playing a lefty today, so Brian De La Cruz and Jacob Berry will be playing for Miami. As for the Mets, they have 7 lefties in a row to start off and a switch hitter. That's quite the group that Sandy Alcantara will be facing off against to start his season. When we last saw Sandy, it was last year in Game 2 of the wild card round against the Diamondbacks. He obviously did not pitch very well in that game, but he was still very solid a year ago. 2.63 ERA, 1.02 WHIP, finishing in second place for the NL Cy Young behind Roki Sasaki, and finishing second in NL pitching WAR, only behind his teammate Edward Cabrera. Brandon Nimmo, who was second in the WAR in National League last year behind Jazz, starts the season with a strikeout. Good way to open up the season for Sandy Alcantara. He will strike out Jeff McNeil as well on the fastball, and we'll see if he can retire the side against Stephen Kwan. It's a full count here for Kwan, one of the better contact hitters in baseball, and he's going to show that off right here as it gets by the diving glove of Bo Bichette for a single into center field. The Mets get their first base runner of the day, and we'll see if the cleanup hitter Kyle Schwarber can drive him in. He does not. He goes down looking on the circle change. Sandy Alcantara strikes out 3 in the top of the first as we get a look at David Peterson, who is the ace of the Mets. Not quite the Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and Jacob deGroms they've had in the past. Bo Bichette in his first at-bat as a Marlin. It's a pretty uneventful one. He grounds out to Francisco Lindor for the second out of the inning. Now it's the reigning MVP, Jazz Chisholm. He was the best player in baseball last year. Starts his season with an ugly strikeout. And Peterson retires the side. Brett Beatty is up early in the second, and he rips it down the third base line. Berry is unable to make the play, and that'll go for a base hit. The Mets get another runner aboard. We'll see if they can drive him in and put themselves on the board, and it looks like they will not. 6-4-3 double play off the bat of Austin Meadows. The Marlins turn 2, and they make it through inning number 2. Game remains scoreless. Luis Robert, of course, did not have any hits last year in the playoffs, so fittingly, he's going to start with a gapper to open up the bottom of the second. This one should easily go for extra bases as Luis Robert is aboard at second. Robert did play quite well after being traded to the Marlins over the final couple months of the year, but in the playoffs, 0 for 11, not going to cut it. Woody Landry is up now. He chases the 12-6 curve in his first at-bat in his second season after signing a $200 million extension in the offseason at just 20 years old. Runner on third now for Anthony Santander. He goes down looking on the fastball. Peterson makes it through 2 himself, and we are still scoreless here at Lone Depot Park. Alcantara looking to retire the side in the third as he faces Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo grounds this one up the middle. Bo Bichette looks to make the play, and he will. A 1-2-3 inning for Sandy Alcantara. He has looked pretty good through 3. We'll see if the Marlins can get some offense going. So let's travel to the bottom of the third inning. Up for Miami will be Luis Arraez with 2 away, the top of the order. And Arraez hits this one into left field, and it looks like the Marlins will be retired with ease as well. No base runners from either team in the third inning. Sandy Alcantara and David Peterson both look quite good up to this point. And we are still scoreless here in Miami. Stephen Kwan leads off the fourth, his second base hit of the day, as this one will be singled into center field. The New York Mets open up the inning with a base runner. Will this be where they finally are able to get some runs? That'll bring us to the following batter, Kyle Schwarber, who rips this one into center field, and this one is gone. That's Kyle's first Schwarbomb as a Met. A 438-foot no-doubter into straightaway center field, and the New York Mets are on the board. They lead it 2-0 with a 2-run blast off the bat of Kyle Schwarber. 2 away now for Brett Beatty. He lines it into center. Jazz will make the play, but a good inning here for the Mets as they take the lead off of a 2-run blast by Kyle Schwarber. Into the bottom of the fourth. 2 away here for Luis Robert. He's the only Marlin to get on base today. He swings and misses at the low sinker. David Peterson has allowed just 1 base runner through 4 innings. He has been phenomenal. Sandy's making his way through the fifth, looking to retire the side against Francisco Alvarez. He goes down looking on the circle change. The one righty in the Mets lineup is going to be out. Good inning for Sandy. Bottom 5, 2 away. Still only 1 hit for the Marlins as Santander rips this one into center, and Nimmo will not make the grab. So finally, the Marlins get another base runner, their first since all the way back in the second inning. That'll bring up Brian De La Cruz. He hits this one into right field. That'll drop for hit number 3. It took a little bit, but now Miami is starting to show something on offense. Big at bat here for Jacob Berry, who has obviously struggled through his first couple of big league seasons. Grounds this one sharply over to short. Lindor flips it to McNeil. That's 5 scoreless innings for David Peterson, despite a little 2-out rally by the Marlins. Into the 6th inning now. Sandy Alcantara still in the game, still looking strong. But Brandon Nimmo rips it into right field. It goes off the wall. De La Cruz quick to get to it. Kind of rare for him. But that'll be a double to start off the inning for Nimmo. McNeil will then strike out on the fastball. That's a big one. Sandy really needed that first out. 2 away now for Kyle Schwarber. That is a single into left field. The run will score. And the Mets lead it 3-0 with all 3 runs being courteous of Kyle Schwarber. Josh Naylor now up. He goes down on the 12-6, and Sandy makes it through inning number 6, but not before allowing another run, thanks to Kyle Schwarber. Into the bottom of the 6th now. Luis Arraez hits this one well into center. Nimmo will not make the diving grab, and Arraez will look to take advantage. He's going to dig in for second, and they will not send a throw to the base. So Luis Arraez kicks off the second with a double, and the Marlins get another hit. That'll bring up the new kid on the block, Bo with the flow. Happy Bo-pening day, everyone. Bo Bichette singles into right. His first hit as a Marlin. They're not going to send the runner. There's no outs. There's no real reason to risk it. But now there are runners on the corners. Big opportunity for Jazz Chisholm. The 1-2. He skies this one into left field. That one will be caught by Kwan. Luis Arraez is going to look to tag up. The throw to the plate is going to be close, and it's a little bit offline. The Marlins are on the board. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but it's a sacrifice fly from Jazz Chisholm, and from there, David Peterson's going to be taken out of the game. He looked dominant early, but the offense has really started to make plays. 4 of the last 6 at-bats for the Marlins have been base hits, and that doesn't even count the sac fly. Jose Butto is in the game for the Mets. We're adults. We can be mature about this. Butto is 28 years old. He has not pitched in the big leagues since 2022, where he's pitched 1 career game with the Mets. Welcome to the big leagues, Mr. Booty. Luis Robert, his second hit of the game. This one into the gap for a double. Bo Bichette will look to score. He is safe, and it's a 3-2 ball game off of a Luis Robert RBI double. Runner in scoring position now with 1 away. The Marlins are fired up. And now with 2 away, it's Woody Landry up to the plate. And Woody skies this one into the opposite field. Back at the track, at the wall. It is caught. Still a very successful inning as the Marlins scored 2. And they knock David Peterson out of the game. Sandy Alcantara's day is done as well. He'll be replaced by the new free agent signing, Dylan Tate, who has spent each of the last 7 seasons with the Baltimore Orioles. He'll face off against Brett Beatty, who grounds to first. Landry deflects it, and he flips it over for out number 1. Good play there by Woody Landry at first base. 2 away now for the shortstop, Francisco Lindor, batting in the 8 hole, interestingly enough. And he strikes out on the sinker. A 1-2-3 inning for Dylan Tate, Mr. Consistent. He's been one of the most reliable relievers in the bigs for quite a while. Bottom 7 now. 2 away for the pinch hitter, Gavin Lux. He'll start his season off with a base hit. Lux comes in to replace Jacob Berry, and he takes advantage as he is aboard early. Since there's 2 away and Luis Arraez, who's more of a singles guy, is up, the Marlins feel better about their chances to score if the runner's in scoring position. Lux will steal second. He is safe. If the throw is a little bit more online, I think they could have got him. But it is a stolen base for Gavin Lux and a great opportunity for Luis Arraez to drive in the runner. He will line this one sharply into left center field. That's going to drop. Had Lux not stolen second, he probably would have scored anyway, as it's an RBI double for Luis Arraez, and we are tied up at 3. The offense has really come to play over these last couple of innings. Bichette hits this one sharply into left center. That'll drop. Arraez will look to score, and the Miami Marlins will take the lead. It's now 4-3 off of an RBI single by Bo Bichette, his second hit and his first RBI as a Marlin. Jose Butto will be taken out of the game. He'll be replaced by the former Marlin, Jonathan Loaisiga, who's coming off a strong season last year with the Mets. Sub-3 ERA. He'll face off against his former teammate, Jazz Chisholm, who is without a hit so far today. Did drive in a run in his last at-bat. Hits this one up the middle. That'll go for a single. Bo Bichette probably could have gone to third, but he stayed on second for like 5 seconds. So he's just going to head back to second. 2 on, 2 away now. A huge opportunity for Luis Robert, who's been really good today. He already has 2 extra base hits, and he's ahead early, 2-1. Robert hits this one down the line, his 3rd hit of the game. This one will likely also go for extras. Bichette will score. Jazz Chisholm will stay at 3rd. It's an RBI double for Luis Robert, who now has 3 doubles today and 2 RBIs. Big opportunity for Nick Fortes, who's 0 for 3, coming off a rough playoff run where he struggled with runners aboard, and fittingly, he strikes out on the slurve. Great inning, though. The Marlins trailed going into the 7th, and now they are winning after scoring 3 runs. They're up 5-3. Let's move into the 8th inning now. Another pitching change for the Marlins as A.J. Puck is in. A.J. Puck, of course, is a lefty, and the Mets have a lot of lefties. Their only righty, Francisco Alvarez, who strikes out on the slider. That'll bring us to Brandon Nimmo. He goes down on the slider as well. Good start for A.J. Puck, who will look to strike out the side, facing off against the veteran Jeff McNeil. Count is 1-2. Back to the slider again. A.J. Puck retires the side with a trio of Ks, and the Marlins make it through the 8th. Can Miami hold on to win it? We'll see if they can add some more runs in the bottom half of the inning with Lewis Head coming into the game. Again, guys, we can be appropriate. We can be adults about this. But Butto and Head in the same rotation, that is quite the duo. Woody Landry will lead things off. He's been pretty quiet so far, 0 for 3. But he hits one into left field. That'll go potentially for extra bases. Woody Landry did a great job in the playoffs of hitting the ball to the opposite field. I think teams need to be aware that Woody Landry is starting to become a better all-over-the-field hitter rather than somebody who just pulls it into right. Landry now on 3rd, 1 away for Jesus Sanchez, who lines this one into right field. That'll drive in a run. Slider right down the middle. That's a great pitch to hit. And Sanchez capitalizes his first RBI of the year as he came off the bench a couple innings ago for Brian De La Cruz. Now it's Luis Ariz up. Gavin Lux will steal second. Lux reached base off of a fielder's choice. Very similar situation to the previous inning, where I think you got a lot better of an opportunity to drive Lux in scoring position, especially if Luis Ariz up. This time he doesn't capitalize, though, as he pops it up into center. Nimmo makes the play, but the Marlins add another run off of an RBI single by Jesus Sanchez. They're up by 3 going into the 9th, and it's time for the new closer, Devin Williams, to finish out the game. Williams did kind of struggle last year in Milwaukee, and he'll start with Kwan, who lays down the drag bunt to perfection. Luis Ariz unable to make the barehanded play. Ariz has to adjust, learning to a new position. I get it. Schwarber now crushes it into right, but it goes foul. Schwarber has driven in runs in each of his last 2 at-bats. The rest of the team has given him no run support, and a couple pitches later, he strikes out on the cutter. Great pitch by Devin Williams. That cutter is nasty. The cutter gets Beatty to end the game, and the Marlins win it here on opening day 6-3. The offense really struggled early. Only 1 hit through the first 4 innings, then got 12 hits through the final 4 innings, including 2 runs in the 6th, 3 in the 7th, and another in the 8th. We certainly did not rely on the long ball today. No homers, but we consistently hit the ball well. We had a lot of doubles in this game. No shortage of extra base hits. Even at the elite power and pop from last year wasn't exactly there today. 3 runs on just 7 hits for the Mets. Steven Kwan was good. He went 3 for 4. Kyle Schwarber also good, 2 for 4 with a homer and all 3 RBIs. But nobody else on their lineup really did well. Their pitching was good early. David Peterson had a good start, but the bullpen really struggled. Our offense took a little bit to get going, but when we were on fire with 6 runs over the final 3 innings. Plenty of extra base hits. We had 6 doubles today. Sandy Alcantara pitched pretty well, and the bullpen absolutely shut the door. They did a great job. So a good start to opening day. We get the win. We open up the season 1-0. We're on pace to finish the year 162-0. Do I think that's going to happen? No, probably not, but good start. We're going to simulate through the rest of this homestand. 2 more games against the Mets, and then 3 against the Baltimore Orioles. We ended up doing fine, going 3-3. We split the last 2 games against the Mets, including an Edward Cabrera masterclass as he would throw a complete game shutout. And then we only won 1 against the Orioles. The 2 losses, I think, were especially interesting. So this first one, we lost 11-10. Gennaro Miller did not even last 2 innings, allowing 7 runs, but none of them were earned because of an error by former Oriole Anthony Santander that led to a domino effect. Then the next day, we lost 1-0. Could we have donated just a couple of the runs from the previous game? So we're going to hop into this game against San Diego. I want to look at Edward Cabrera, but before that, there are some storylines I want to talk about, including Nick Fortes, who has been just awful so far. Fortes has gotten better every year this series, and I've been kind of waiting for him to regress to the mean. This is one way to do it. He is certainly not playing as well. Brian De La Cruz, on the other hand, has looked like an MVP through 12 at-bats. He's drawn 4 walks, which is impressive for a guy who doesn't walk a lot, and he has been raking up to this point. So we've got our first road game of the year, a West Coast road trip, 4 games in San Diego, and then 3 in Seattle. I wanted to look at this game against the Padres specifically to get a look at Edward Cabrera, who just signed an $80 million extension, and in his first game after signing the extension, he threw a complete game shutout against the New York Mets. He's got a little bit bigger of a challenge today against a very talented Padres lineup, and he'll be facing off against Dylan Cease, who the Padres gave a massive contract to in the offseason. His first start was a very good one. 7 innings, only allowing 1 run and 4 base runners. We'll see how we can do against the Marlins lineup, and we'll start with Bo Bichette, who has looked more than comfortable through his first few games as a Marlin. But his first bat here today is a strikeout on the changeup. Let's get our first look at the $80 million man, Edward Cabrera, who went the entire way in his first start of the year against the Mets, not allowing a run, only allowing 3 hits and 1 walk. That's just 4 base runners through the entirety of the game. He'll face off against Ha-Seong Kim here in the bottom of the first, and Kim will rip this one up the middle for a single. The Padres get a base runner here, and that'll bring up the heart of the order. Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. are due up. 2 away here for Tatis with the runner on first. Cabrera looks to get him on the fastball, and he will. Tatis strikes out, and Edward Cabrera makes it through the first. He'll start his season with at least 10 consecutive scoreless innings. Let's move into the second now on a beautiful April afternoon here in San Diego. Luis Robert, who's also gotten off to a phenomenal start to the year, he strikes out on the slider. Robert hitting .350 through the first 6 games of the year. Woody Landry rips this one into right. First hit of the game for the Marlins, and they get a base runner here with 1 away. So now that'll bring up Jesus Sanchez, who's been pretty solid so far, hitting .250. He's got 2 homers up to this point. Woody Landry looks to steal second, and it won't really matter as Sanchez strikes out on the knuckle curve. 2 scoreless for Dylan Cease, and we move into the bottom of the second inning. We'll see what Edward Cabrera can do here as he faces off against the former Angel, Jared Walsh. He goes down looking on the sinker to get things going. Great pitch by Cabrera. Now facing off against Jake Cronenworth. He will draw a walk, and the Padres get a base runner for the catcher, Christian Vasquez. He grounds this one up the middle. The Marlins should be able to turn 2, and they will. It's a 4-6-3 double play. Lux to Bichette to Landry, and we are scoreless through 2. The boys appear to be fired up in the infield. Brian De La Cruz has been unbelievable so far for Miami, and fittingly, he will start with a walk, his 5th of the year. He's drawn the same amount of walks so far this year as times he has been out, and that's especially impressive, again, for a guy who doesn't draw a lot of walks. Bichette rips this one down the line. That'll go for extra bases. Are the Marlins going to send De La Cruz? They will not. He's going to hold up at third, so the Marlins have 2 runners in scoring position. A huge at-bat for Jazz Chisholm, who's been a little quiet so far. He's hitting around .220. No homers up to this point. Full count for Jazz. He rips this one up the middle, but the play will be made by Ha-Seong Kim. The Marlins leave 2 runners aboard, and we are still scoreless going into the bottom of the third. Will Myers back in San Diego, where it all started, as he will strike out on the slider. Now TJ Friedl is up for the Padres. Full count. He'll take a walk, and the Padres have another runner aboard here with 1 away. That'll bring us to the top of the order. Xander Bogaerts, who strikes out on the slider. Good pitch by Cabrera. Now facing off against Ha-Seong Kim, who rips it into right. Sanchez will not make the diving play. Kim will look to gun for 2, And the throw is in time! Jesus Sanchez got him. Sanchez kind of baits Kim into going for second base, even though he didn't catch the ball. By getting Kim to go to second, he's able to make the easy throw, and the Marlins make it through the inning. Let's go to the fourth now. Nick Fortes leads it off. He has reached base just one time this year, and now he rips this one into left for a hit. His second base hit of the entire season. While I'm confident Fortes will certainly be playing a lot better than this, it does suck to see him really struggle so far. 2 away here for Sanchez. The full count pitch. Got him looking on the fastball. As we learned last year, Jesus Sanchez just has a bigger strike zone than everybody else. I don't know why, but he just gets so unlucky with called strikes. Still no score as we move into the bottom of the fourth. Manny Machado leads it off for the Padres, and he rips this one into right field. That one should go 4 extra bases as Sanchez is all the way in the corner. And it's a really good throw, but Machado is barely safe at second. The Padres have the runner in scoring position now with 1 away as Walsh strikes out on the circle change. That would have been ball 4 if he didn't swing at it, but he was caught chasing. 2-2 now for Cronenworth. Got him looking. 4 scoreless for Edward Cabrera. He's allowed a base runner so far in every inning, but overall he has looked quite good up to this point as we move into the fifth. Brian De La Cruz with another base hit as it's ripped into the gap, and this one is over the fence for a home run. Brian De La Cruz with his 3rd homer of the season. The rest of the team only has 4 home runs combined, and nobody else has more than 1. I don't want to overreact because we're only 6.5 games into the year, but Brian De La Cruz looks like a different beast. He's had a lot to prove so far going into this season because the outfield is very crowded, and it felt like he would kind of be the odd man out. But if he even plays at half of this level for the rest of the year, then he is going to be an everyday player in this lineup, and he is going to hopefully continue to play at an outstanding level. The Marlins get another hit here. Gavin Lux singles up the middle into center, and so that's another base runner. This game has been kind of like the Mets game where the offense starts slow, but then they really get things together. A rise into right center. It goes off the top of the wall. That one will go for extras. It'll be a double, and now there's 2 runners in scoring position. As good as Dylan Cease has pitched today, the pitch count is really high. The Marlins have gotten super deep in accounts, and that's why Cease is already into triple digits. His 101st pitch of the game to Bichette is a liner to first. Walsh deflects it, flips it over to the pitcher, but a run scores. The other runner advances to third, and so it is now a 2-0 ball game. From there, Cease will be taken out. He'll be replaced by the lefty, Jose Lopez, who is not allowed to run through his first 3 2/3 innings. We'll see if Jazz Chisholm can drive in the runner from third. All he's really got to do is put the ball in play, and that's exactly what he does. Hits it well into left. Friedel will make the grab. Luis Ariz will look to score, and the throw to the plate is going to be in time! The Padres turn the double play. What a throw by TJ Friedel. The Marlins do score 2 in the 5th, a really successful inning, but it feels like they could have done more. They had 2 runners in scoring position with nobody out and a 1-0 lead. I feel like they should have been able to get both of those guys in. Into the bottom of the 5th, it's a full count here for TJ Friedel, who just had the big throw. He'll draw his 2nd walk of the game. Walking the guy who has a 136 average twice is not ideal. What a play, though, by Luis Ariz to end the 5th. Apparently, he's got some bunnies as he leaps into the air and grabs what could have been maybe an extra base hit and maybe an RBI from Xander Bogaerts. Of course, we don't get to see the catch. Instead, we get to see the rear end of the Padres' third base coach. But that's now 14 consecutive scoreless innings to start the year for Edward Cabrera. Luis Robert singles here to open up the 6th. Another base runner here for the Marlins as they look to potentially add to their lead. Woody Landry is now up, and he will ground this one right to first. 3-6-3 double play. The Padres will turn 2. Good work by the San Diego infield. Bottom 6 now. Ha-Seong Kim is up for the Padres, and he rips this one down the line. Luis Ariz cannot make the play, and that'll go for a single. Kim continues to have a very productive day offensively. He is aboard now for Manny Machado, who strikes out on the slider. Good pitch by Cabrera, who is still looking good as always. However, Fernando Tatis Jr. has something to say about it. This one is crushed into left center field, and that one's gone. It's a 2-run homer off the bat of Fernando Tatis, his first homer of the year, and the Padres tie it at 2. The first runs allowed by Edward Cabrera all season after 14 1/3 scoreless innings to start the year. Jared Walsh now flies into the left. De La Cruz, slow to get to it. I see that hasn't changed, and I guess that won't really need to change if he's going to continue to hit 600. Jake Cronenworth rips it down the line. Arise is unable to make the play, and that'll go for a base hit as Cronenworth looks to make it to second. He is out of there! Great throw by Brian De La Cruz, who continues his phenomenal day. A walk, a homer, and now a throwing assist. The Padres do score 2, though, off the homer by Tatis, and we are tied up going into the 7th inning. The lefty Adrian Morejon is in for San Diego. He's allowed 2 runs in 2 innings so far. Hopefully he allows another one here, as Gennaro Miller will enter the game here off the bench for Jesus Sanchez. And Miller strikes out looking. That pitch looked low, but he does not get the call. That'll bring up Gavin Lux now with 2 away. Little lefty-on-lefty crime. And this one is weakly hit over to second. Going to be a close play. And Ha-Seong Kim will make the throw. Morejon retires the side. We will move into the bottom of the 7th. And the Marlins do the pitching change. Adonis Takadopoulos is into the game. His first appearance of the year. He was really inconsistent last year. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't, really good either. Myers grounds it to third. The throw from Luis Arise is offline. Again, Luis Arise clearly adjusting to his new position as he gets called for the throwing error. He would very clearly regret it because TJ Friedl would launch an absolute piss missile in a right field. That is one of the longest home runs I think I have seen ever. 462 feet off the bat of TJ Friedl. So that's why Edward Cabrera wasn't throwing strikes to him, because apparently he's Barry Bonds. The Padres take a 4-2 lead, and Takadopoulos is going to be taken out of the game. Camilo Duvall will come to replace him, his first appearance of the season as well. 3.61 ERA, 1.31 whip a season ago, as Kim grounds it to third, and this time Luis Arise will make the throw. But the Padres scored 2 off of an error and off of a nuclear missile from TJ Friedl, who, again, might have hit the longest home run I think I've ever seen. Bo Bichette draws a walk here in the 8th. He's facing off against the former Marlin, Matt Barnes. Jazz Chisholm is now up. Bichette looks to steal second, and there's not going to be a throw as Christian Vasquez drops it. Runner in scoring position now for Jazz. Again, he's a great clutch hitter. Perfect opportunity to drive in this run as the ball gets by Vasquez. And Bichette, who thought about going 3, will head back to second base. The following pitch now for Jazz, it's 3-1. He's in a hitter-friendly count, so Barnes does not want to give him anything good, and I don't really blame him. Jazz Chisholm draws the walk. That does set a force out at all 3 bases, though. Huge at bat here for Luis Robert, the 2-2. Got him! Whoa, it's not a strike! That pitch was very clearly in the zone. I mean, we won't complain. And then on the following pitch, Robert hits this one well in a right field. Back at the track at the wall, it's caught. If that ball had made it over the fence, I think this stadium would have revolted, and rightfully so, to be honest. The runner does advance, and now there's runners on the corners with 2 away. Another pitching change for the Padres as the veteran Archie Bradley is into the game. He'll face off against the first baseman Woody Landry, who's got a huge opportunity with runners on the corners, tying run on first. The potential go-ahead run is at the plate. And what was he thinking? He check swings a clearly way high fastball. He realized it halfway through his swing, but at that point, it was too late. The bench very clearly frustrated with that as we move to the bottom of the 8th. Duvall remains in the game. He'll allow a single to Fernando Tatis Jr., who of course hit the home run earlier. Tatis is aboard for Jared Walsh. He launches this one into right field, and Slam Diego has truly arrived. 3 home runs in the last 3 innings for the Padres. That's Walsh's second of the year. And San Diego now leads at 6-2. Duvall is taken out. He'll be replaced by Dylan Tate. It's unfortunate seeing the bullpen really struggle today because the bullpen's been so good this year. And it's not going to get any better. Jake Cronenworth, the Crone Zone, rips it into left center. That'll bounce over the wall for a ground rule double. And the Padres have another runner on for Vasquez, who watches a circle change go right down the middle. What was he waiting for? And then Will Myers will strike out as well because Dylan Tate is him. Still not a very good inning as Jared Walsh makes it a 4-point lead, and we will move into the 9th. Nick Fortes draws his first walk of the year. He has reached base more times today, twice, than he did through the first 6 games of the year, once. Anthony Santander, who has struggled up to this point of the year, will come into the game off the bench. He strikes out on the fastball. 2 away now for Gavin Lux. The game on the line. Lux will pop this one into center field. It should be caught, and it will. The San Diego Padres win it 6-2 as the Marlins lose their first road game of the season, and they will fall to a record of 3-4. This was certainly a rough loss. We really started the game off well, especially pitching-wise. Edward Cabrera was great through the first 5 innings, and then Slam Diego really arrives. 2-run homer by Tatis in the 6th, 2-run tank by TJ Friedl in the 7th, and then Jared Walsh ices it with a 2-run homer in the 8th. Just 2 runs and 7 hits today. The offense wasn't really all that good. Nobody had more than 1 hit. Brian De La Cruz was good. He drew another walk. He hit a homer, but nobody else was really impressive. Cabrera was pretty good. The bullpen, though, not so much. As for the Padres, Ha-Sung Kim with 3 hits, Tatis with 2 and a dinger, and then TJ Friedl was really good. 2 walks and a 460-foot best missile in right field, and along with that, their pitching was really good throughout the entirety of the game. So an unfortunate loss. We've now lost 4 or 5, and we're going to do some more simming, wrapping up our West Coast road trip, a launch simming a 3-game homestand against the Royals. Unfortunately, Luis Robert broke his hand. He'll be out for around a month or 2. The issue with Robert has always been his health. Last year was the first time he played over 100 games in a season, and this year he was looking really good early on, but now he gets hurt, and he'll likely not come back until the month of May. Brian De La Cruz will now be an everyday player. I'm really excited to see how he does after his phenomenal start to the year. And then Rob Refsnyder will enter the Major League roster. We ended up doing fine in the games we simmed. We only won 1 game, though, against San Diego. This last game, Gennaro Miller, 5 runs allowed, but only 1 earned. So through Miller's first 2 starts, he's allowed 12 runs, but just 1 of them is earned. We then only won 1 of 3 against the Mariners, thanks to an Edward Cabrera masterclass, 7 scoreless innings. But we were able to rebound by sweeping the Kansas City Royals, and we are now 8-8. We haven't looked great to start the year, but some guys are doing well. Nick Fortes is starting to play better. The average is still low, but he's improving. Brian De La Cruz has come back down to earth, but he's still been playing really well this year. Everybody at the top of the order has been very good. Edward Cabrera is looking like a Cy Young. Sandy's been fine. We're going to get through the rest of the month of April and the early portion of May in the next episode, and we're also going to talk scouting for the first time. Get a look at some of the international players in this year's draft. So that'll wrap up the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new and if you're excited for Season 4 of the Marlins franchise. Peace out.